in 3, 2. Hell yeah.
So you're live. Welcome to
Okay.
Fired Up for Recovery.
What's up?
What's up? What's going on?
What's good? What's good in your neighborhood?
Ain't nothing. We got a guest on here today.
Yes, we do.
We got Coach Shantell. How you doing, Miss Chantelle?
I'm doing very good.
Good. Oh, sorry, everyone. I'm driving, but I'm being very responsible with my driving. So what's going on, y'all? Fired Up for Recovery. We didn't have one last Friday because I was teaching a recovery coaching academy, training some new people to be recovery coaches. So, which is an awesome thing. But yeah, fired up. So what's going on?
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I missed you last week. I felt so lost and didn't really know what to do from 8 till 9:30 on Friday night, and it was confusing, right. But I got through it.
Yeah.
It happened,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of miss you too.
Separation anxiety.
Yeah, a little separation anxiety, And I mean, it's one of those things. We start building all these habits and routines. Like when it stops, you go, "What am I supposed to do? Like I don't know what to do now." So yeah, it's okay though.
Yeah. Right.
I got through it.
Yeah. So what's going on in recovery, man? What's up? Get fired up.
All I know is I've had a phenomenal week. I've had some great. It actually started last Friday. I did a little series on my meetings, and it went from loyalty, on getting out of those habits of being loyal to the wrong individuals in your life, and then in the next one was forgiveness, and then complacency, right? So it was three bangers back to back, right? Like, and they were great meetings, and to see our peers getting fired up and really engaging was awesome, and just great topics all around too, and they just went hand in hand. So it's been a great week though, man. Like it's a lot going on, staying busy, big stuff going on, to be honest. I mean, you know what we got going on in the community, and I'm excited, man. I know you guys are too.
Yeah. I'm very excited. We got, like tomorrow we got the car wash going on, and then we got a cookout on March 26th. Then we're gonna do the June 4th. I'm excited about that. So yeah, a lot of great things going on, man. And I'm just coming back from North Carolina, and just had some great times up there. And was at a forum today, and they have some great topics going on, trying to figure out how they can help their overdose and come up with a game plan. And it was just great, man. Great. How about you, Miss Chantelle? How was your week?
My week was awesome. I got to go to the treatment center today, and it never fails to amaze me how it makes me feel when I go there, because it's one that I went through. And getting to go back, I don't know, it's funny because I told them that I'd be there like an extra day here soon coming up, and I was like, yeah, I'd be like I live here again. And she's like, we'd love to have you, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just okay with it as long as I can leave.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I don't want to stay again, not unwillingly, but
right.
I like to just drop by and make my presence known and go back home.
Yeah, I have to ring the doorbell now. It's cool,
Yeah, absolutely. You're on the other side of that glass.
Yeah. But no, it really has been an awesome week. I've been missing my kids though, because they went to my brother's for spring break. And it's not crazy when they're home, but when they're gone, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, you talk about that separation anxiety, right? That's what that is. When they're right there under,
I miss them.
Yeah, when they're home and they're all up in your business and under your feet and bothering you, and you're wanting to yell at them, and you're like, oh, I wish they would just go somewhere. And then when they do go somewhere, you're like, oh, I wish they were back. So, yeah, trust me, I get it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Good,
yeah,
good.
going back to school on Monday though, so be back to normal. Why you have to
Tuesday.
wind them down Sunday.
Right. Hmm.
Oh, actually, they go back Tuesday, I think, don't they? Yeah,
It's definitely Tuesday.
which is crazy. I think I need to be a teacher, right? With the amount of days off they get, like they just had a whole week off, and then they get a teacher work day on Monday. Like, how does they get an extra day from the week? That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. And they get 2 weeks off during Christmas.
Well,
Shout out to all the teachers.
yeah. I mean, I get 2 weeks off at Christmas too, so I can't complain about that. But still they get all these other days and federal holidays. Like, man, that's what I just need to hit the lottery. That's really all I need to do, and just retire. And then I can just put all my energy and time and money into recovery and just sit back and enjoy life. That would be ideal, but you got to play it, I think, to be able to hit it. So I'm kind of missing out on that boat. But
yeah,
I can't afford to get. Man, I ain't giving away no dollar like that to a pipe dream. No, thank you.
Look, man, you gave your money away to the dope man. So
You're right, but that's
the lottery.
Right. But the lottery can be the dope man too. Man, I see people in them stores. Listen, get stuck behind one of them people in the store with 18 different tickets they need to check. And I'm like, oh man, like, nope, I couldn't do that. I like my money too much. I can find better ways to spend it. That's for sure.
Right. But I'm glad.
Love and tolerance comes into play.
Right. But I'm glad we have Chantelle on here tonight, because it brings a woman point of view of recovery. For the last couple fired up for recovery, just with me and Phil, and we talked about bringing a woman on here, because I feel like women have it hard to do recovery. They have a hard time doing recovery. It's not impossible for a woman, but because if you look at it, the recovery is it's a male dominant thing, really. And I'm not saying that to be saying that there's not a lot of women, but if you think about it, women always had it rough in recovery, still do. So I'm so glad you're on here. And how has recovery been for you, Chantelle, being a woman? So if any women out there listening, if any women out there, having a hard time, how has recovery been for you?
I'm not really sure like how different it is on the other spectrum, but for me, I know probably just like the whole kids thing, I feel like, this is just my personal opinion. I know a lot was expected of me, especially in early recovery as a mom. I was ostracized by family kind of because I didn't get my children back right away when they thought I should get them back. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew that there was things that I needed to get put in place first, like a foundation of recovery and, getting on my feet and lining things up so that when I went to a judge, I didn't just get thrown out of the courtroom, because that happened once. And that I had all my ducks in a row. And I was really afraid that I would get them back too soon and I would just to lose them again, and I didn't want to go through that. So, it was just a lot, because you're trying your best to do what you got to do to get on your feet. And, you want to be a mom again, and all those feelings and emotions are coming back on top of everything. And nobody really understands unless they've been in that situation. So you're kind of judged. And I hear that a lot from women in early sobriety. Like, I feel like I got to get my kids back now and I want them back now, but I don't know if I'm ready. And, I just kind of tell my experience with the situation to them, to just try to give them comfort and like, let them know, like, you're not alone. It's okay to feel that way, and, that was probably one of the biggest things for me.
Yeah, yeah. And then that is so true, because sometimes women do want to get the kids back so fast, but are you ready? Are you ready to have them back? So that's great. I always wonder, always feel for the woman because, us men in recovery, a lot of us single, some of us, like Phil involved with his family. I'm involved with my kids, but a mom always have her kids. And so I always think about that. And then we ask so much for a mom to do, you got to do meetings and you got to work with a sponsor or whatever, a coach or whatever. And that's a lot, that's a lot. So, but, I get to watch you every day and I get to see you juggle it. I see you try to see you manage it. And, and you're a great role model for the women, so, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off that because, just listening to you talk about that, like just kind of made me think about kind of how easy it was for me, right? And I don't mean that easy maybe isn't the best word, right? But for me, I don't have custody of my kids, right? So I just have, I have them on the weekends and things like that. So when I was going through my active addiction, I could kind of manipulate my time with them a little bit and still do my thing. And then once I went to jail and stuff, and got out, things kind of went back to normal, right? So they went right back to, I have them every other weekend or whenever I want to get them. And there was really no lapse except for jail, of course. But I couldn't really. I was sitting there just trying to wrap my head around how. And I think that's what speaks so much volume about you, Chantelle, is to be able to make that decision that I need to work on myself a little bit before I get them back full time in my life to be better for them, right? Like that, weighing out the pros and cons of that, like it's hard for me to just wrap my head around, right? Because I didn't have that situation, and it's amazing to see the mom you are, right? And I think a lot of that, it probably has to do with that time that you took in your early recovery, right? And to get yourself right and be ready to be a mom again and be on it, and it's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal to hear your story, to hear you talk about it. Like, it's just amazing. So kudos, good job for you. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I think it's probably like the most like the first selfless thing I ever did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like telling
Yeah,
them,
that's hard in early recovery, right? Because like you want to be everything about you, but you have kids, right? So to that, man, like that, to weigh that out, like, man, I can't even, like I said, I can't wrap my head around it, but because I haven't had to experience anything like that. It's all been kind of on me. But damn.
Yeah, and I think too, I don't know, and the recovery world, right? Just conversation, we're all so excited when we get our kids back, and we're all, listen, what happened to me today, or I had my court date today, and I got my babies, and yay. And like that's the general thing that everyone hears, but like not so often do you hear like the aftermath of that.
Right.
You're thrown into this role all of a sudden again, where it's not all about you, and there's a house to be cleaned and laundry to be done and dinner to be cooked and children to help bathe and, bedtime and wake up time. And there's all this stuff, you know what I mean? And it's extremely overwhelming in the beginning. I mean, it still is sometimes, but if you don't have like that foundation and tools and the support, it can be really, really hard.
Yeah, because I know just for me and my active addiction, right? Like I was not like, I'm trying to think of the word, right? Like I was not responsible, right? Like I just wasn't. I was careless. I was there's so many bad adjectives that I could use to describe myself in my active addiction. And then to turn around and flip that once I start in recovery, right? To all of a sudden have to bear the burden of these new things, these new different adjectives that I want to be described as, right? As responsible, trustworthy, honest, all these different things that go along with it. And then to add on top of that, the raising of the kids again, right? To put all of that pressure back into, and it can really be like, it could be a ticking time bomb if you're not careful, right? Like, I mean, that for me, not even with kids, I had to be very cautious of the amount of stuff that I put on my plate. Because for me, not being able to follow through or not failing at something has always been a problem for me, right? So if I put too much on my plate in early recovery, it could backfire, right? And put me back into my old comfortable ways of masking and hiding and numbing myself. So, it's super important. Like that foundation that you build in early recovery has got to be super strong, and even stronger with some kids. You get that type of responsibility back in your life. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, to think about that,
Absolutely.
and then you hear about people, and like you said before, as a parent, right, you want to be back in their lives because now you're in recovery, right, and you're starting to do better, and you want that bond back again that you might have strained while you're in your addiction. You want to fix it and you want to make everything right. And sometimes the kids aren't right, they're not quite ready for that either, right? Because they knew daddy was kind of just not there. He wasn't present. I wasn't, whatever. And now all of a sudden I'm back and expect them to just be happy go lucky and, oh, welcome home. You know what I mean? Like, and it sometimes doesn't work that way, because kids can have resentments too,
Yeah.
That's
Trying
dangerous.
trying to realize that they're tiny little humans with their own feelings and emotions and personalities and temperaments.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And you have to
it's
treat them like that. Like, you have to, right? Because each one they're their own little individuals too. And as much as you want them to, and then you're trying to get your perception of what you want done, trying to push that on or project it onto them, kind of, of how we're supposed to live now and all these different things. And they're like, well, you didn't care about none of that a year ago. Why all of a sudden you care now? So that man, that's a slippery slope right there. But that's like why I tell people all the time, right? Like, my kids, they know what I'm doing, right? They know, like, my daughter's not here tonight. I just have my son, right? But she would normally be right here over my shoulder with me being on here, right? And because she knows what I'm doing, and keeping my kids involved with everything I do in my recovery is so important for me. You know what I mean? Like, because I want them to see and even hear some of the struggles that I go through on a daily basis, or some of the struggles I went through, right? So hopefully they, and they can continue to see that growth, and because they're doing it with me. It's super important.
absolutely so I remember when I first got sober and I started, I didn't have the kids back yet, but they were, coming over more. They were visiting
Right.
all the time. And I was living with my mom at the time. And I remember she pulled me to the side one day and she's like, Chantelle, like, you're not present, like, you're not here as much now, if not more than when you were in your addiction. And it's because I was in meetings all the time. I was in 3 to 4 meetings a day, just trying to acclimate to society again, after being in jail and rehab. And it was overwhelming,
Sure.
just all of it. And I just told her, I was like, listen, like, if I don't do this right now, like, I'm not going to be here at all ever.
Right.
Like, and when I am here, I'm not going to be present, and, I think back to that sometimes because now, my kids have been back with me for like 3 years now. And, they've literally at this point grown up in the recovery rooms,
Sure.
and my daughter, sometimes she's 8 and she'll come up to me and she's like, Mommy, don't you think you maybe need a meeting today? And I'm like, I don't know. Is it going to affect your recovery today?
Yeah, you better check your own inventory before you start checking mine, girl.
Oh, she holds me accountable, let me tell you. And we generally go, and they just do, they know that's, the recovery community is a huge part of our family today. And two, like you were saying, and you guys kind of touched on it on another Fire Up for Recovery not too long ago, but like my addiction had a huge impact on my children.
Right.
And so my recovery has too as well.
Yeah.
And, I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity to allow that to be a thing today, it's just, it's amazing to watch. And two, with that, like you were saying about the resentments, I wanted to touch on that because you're right, they do. And they have different ways of processing and showing that stuff. And we, at least for me, like I, a lot of times be so caught up with my own stuff and doing my own inventory that I forget that these little people went through all this stuff too.
Right.
And they didn't have anything to numb it, And so I ended up when because their dad's passed away.
Right.
And from this disease. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta get him put in therapy. And then like it clicked with me one day. I'm like, they don't just need therapy for that. They need therapy for all the stuff I put them through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that might have had something to do with it too.
Right. And that's a great point. Like, I mean, because because we were selfish for so long, right? To all of a sudden turn that off, right? Because a lot of times they say, oh, you got to be selfish with your recovery when you first get in recovery too, right? And you do, right? Because you have to make sure that you're good before you can make sure anybody else is good. But you have to be able to adjust that level, right? You have to be able to adjust that level, especially when you have the little ones, to keep them and let them deal with whatever trauma that has been created for them and for you as well, right? Because it works both ways. Because man, I've had my daughter say something slick to me, knowing like she knew what she was saying. You know what I mean? And like, I just want to go back with mommy. And then like, I don't know, like I think what she actually said was like, I kind of wish you were back in jail. And I was like, oh, really? Like, of course, in that moment though, right? Like I wanted to lose it, right? Like, how dare you, right? Like, don't you know what I'm doing now? But that's the old Phil, right? That's how I would react before, because I was trying to hide everything and make, so I had to take a step back and go, ooh, okay. So there's an issue that we need to somehow get resolved, and figure out how to have that conversation with a 9-year-old and be responsible with it, and let her have that anger, right? And that resentment, because she's allowed to. And a lot of times people think, oh, well, they're only 9. They don't know what. And that's not true. You know what I mean? They have their own minds. They have their own way of thinking, right? You have to allow them to express themselves just as well as you want to express what you're going through. And that gets overlooked a lot, and then when something like that happens, and like I said, you want to blow up because you're like, oh, don't you know what I'm doing now? I mean, how that's when you're that rock star in recovery kicks in. You're like, I'm doing great. Like, how dare you? But it's tough, right? It's tough when it's your kids, and you realize you have to come to that realization that you created a lot of that anger, resentment, any of that negative stuff, that negative behavior. You have to own what part you played in it. And we were talking about it in a meeting tonight, even about not even just kids, just family in general, right? That sometimes the amount of stress and trauma that we put on our loved ones, they in turn will start projecting stuff onto us, right? When we start getting into recovery, they start projecting their stuff onto us. And we're like, why? I don't understand. I'm doing great now, right? But they still have to go through and do their stuff, right? It's not ours, it's theirs. It's just it's crazy though, because you've got some time, I've got some time, and I feel it's like deja vu moments, you know, when you're sitting on meetings or you're in a meeting and you hear that, you're like, man, I went through that exact same thing. Like, dang, like, okay, I see where this is going, at full circle moment, right? Like, oh, well, listen, let me tell you what I did and how this worked out. Don't be me, because I was wrong the first time or the third or the fourth. But
Yeah. You see that you want to go through some comments?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm thinking is that Trina Shepard?
I believe so.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And see, that's funny because of what we were talking about our kids in recovery. Because I know Trina is the same way, you know, and that's really cool. Because she told me in one meeting not to, you know, but that her son, her oldest, like would just go to a meeting randomly. You know what I mean? I was like, that's pretty cool. At 16, he's like, I'm going to a meeting. Like, that's awesome. But see, who else we got here? What was the hardest thing your child have said to you about your substance use, and how did you deal with it? I mean, I know I just touched on it. That was the hardest thing when she said, I wish you were back in jail. That was really tough. But it was easy. It was easier, right? After I remembered some of the tools, you know, first thought wrong, all these different things. Like once I was able to kind of digest and center myself back into the moment, right? It was easy for me to have that conversation. Oh, I see you got some popping back in now.
Yeah. There's been so many times and so many things said at this point, because, you know, just like me, when when little people get angry, they say stuff that they know is going to hurt, you know. And
Yep.
so I do the same thing. So my oldest son, I remember I was getting on to him for something, you know, and he just turned around. He's 13 and he just lost his dad. So I've been, you know, already doing that whole like guilt, letting him get away with stuff. Like, and finally I'm like, all right, that's enough. I gotta start putting my foot down. So I get on to him and he turned around, he looks me dead in the eye, and he's like a little taller than me now. And he's like, why do you care now? Like, you never cared before, like, about him. And right. I was just like, oh, that's not true, you know. But in his mind, oh my God, it took my breath away. I had to walk away. I'm not gonna lie, I sat on my front porch crying for like 20 minutes, and Nick was like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not okay. I think I need therapy again.
Right. Now I need it. Yeah. That's such a I'm glad we're having this conversation, you know, like, because I feel like sometimes it's overlooked, right? It's overlooked. We always talk about like some of the damages that we've done to our parents, right? Or our spouse, but the kids sometimes get forgotten, right? And they don't get mentioned as much, you know. But man, that's a phenomenal question. Like, I'm not sure who asked that question. Excuse me.
Mary did. Okay, I need to.
I'm guessing that's Mary. It just says I did, so I'm thinking that's Mary. But it's like, man, like, I would think, and I'm just assuming, right, that there's probably a lot more that they've wanted to say and have just been too scared to say it, you know. Yeah. And like I'm probably 98% sure, like, that if my kid, if we opened up that gate, right, if we opened up that gate and said, you know what, let me have it, whatever you want to say or talk about, it would really hurt us, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it would probably be very hard to listen to, you know, but sometimes that kind of has to happen, right? Like when they get in because, you know, as a parent, you can see a difference in behavior, and you got to figure out where that's coming from. Like, what's causing you to act like that now? And as a parent, you have to do it. I guess the easiest isn't, but like, you as indirectly as you can, without, you know, being like in the face, like, what's going on, you know. so it's just, that's crazy. Like, it's to think about, like, if we really want them to say everything that's going on? Like, if you had to do that again, right? Would you really want the truth, like the hard truth? Do you really want to hear it? No.
I'm about to have to deal with that. And I've been like psyching myself up for it because I went and sat in on my son's therapy session Friday because he's been going through some stuff, and I'm going in there, I'm thinking it's going to be all about his dad. Well, it wasn't. There was a lot of stuff about me. And so the suggestion was made starting like family meeting. And therapist was like, well, is this going to be a safe zone? Like, is he going to be able to say what he needs to say and not have, disciplinary repercussions? Or,
Right.
and I'm like reluctantly like, yeah, it's going to be, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so like, they were at my brother's for spring break, and I'm thinking like, all right, Chantelle, check your motives. Like, why were you so quick to let him go over there for the week? Because I'm procrastinating.
Yeah. and you know what? I mean, and you probably needed that you probably needed that time, right? Because because as parents, we don't ever want our kids to go it through any of the things that we had to go through. We don't want them to be in stressful situations or have anxiety or anything like that, right? Anything that's mentally, physically, you don't want your kids going through none of that stuff if you can help it, right? So when it does happen, like, I could just I'm putting myself in your shoes, right, during that meeting, and I'd be like, I'm a recovery coach. Of course, this is a safe space. Don't you know what I do you know what I mean? Like, I would, but the reality is, that's when that selfish and self-centered part comes out, and you're like, well, it depends on what he says. That's the truth. You know what I mean? Like, that's the truth. But that that's what you want to say, but that that's not the right way. You know what I mean? Like, that it has to be a safe space, and you have to have that open dialogue. And it's only going to make that relationship with your kids that much stronger, right? If you give them the ability to be in a safe space to talk, because that's the only way they're going to keep us informed and in the loop later on down the road too, is if they feel like they can actually come to us without us jumping down their throat immediately, right?
Exactly. And then I try to think of it too from, for my first reaction was in my mind, like, whatever it takes, anything to make my son feel better. Because he's going through a decent depression right now, and it's showing. And I've been there, ish, in the depression. And so whatever it takes to help him, like, I'll do, and then too, like, I was thinking about like our groups, like any recovery oriented group, you know what I mean? Like, what we get out of being able to express our feelings, our emotions, and like how our day went and what's going on with us, like, so I was like, thinking of it from that aspect, I was like, it might not be so bad to let these kids sit in a circle and vent for an hour,
Yeah.
I might not feel good about it, but
Right.
they will.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Absolutely. And that's kind of funny too, that because so tonight's meeting at 6 was on vulnerability, right? And a lot of what we're talking about here is giving our kids the ability to be vulnerable with us, right? And by telling us the truth and telling us how they feel. And that's something that we have to do in recovery, right? Like we have to be able to be vulnerable to talk about the stuff we need to get out, right? So to instill that in our kids now is a pretty powerful thing if you think about it. It's a life lesson.
Vulnerability and transparency.
Right, absolutely. And that's two of the hardest things that I had to learn, right? Because like I said earlier in my group, like, so before in my addiction, I was the complete opposite of being vulnerable, right? I was guarded, I was hiding, I was manipulating, lying, cheating, go down that list, right? So to get into recovery, that was my comfort and my addiction was to do that. That's how I manage things, right? And I was able to mask all that with my drug use. So now I'm in recovery and I have to be honest. Excuse
Mhm.
me. And I have to start getting honest and opening up all these past experiences and things and dealing with it, right? And the only way for me to really get to that point, once I started being honest, is to start being vulnerable and start sharing about it and talking about that stuff and being okay with, if somebody asks a question, giving them the answer, the truthful answer. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
because there's nothing they can do to change something in the past, right? Like it's already happened, right? So you can't make me feel bad about it again. You know what I mean? Like I've already been there, done that. Like I have no reason to feel bad about it today. And you can't really use that against me, like, because I've already done it to myself. So to be
Mhm.
able to instill that same value into our kids, man, like if just think about it, if they have that ability moving forward in their life, not just with us as their parents, but even in their relationships, right? Or if they get into a situation, you know, God forbid, with drugs, alcohol, like stuff that we had to deal with, you know, it may make it a little, it'll make it easier for them to be able to talk about it and feel comfortable about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and it's hard because my children are little mini me's. They all have a different part of my temper. Like it's crazy how different all three of them are, but like how like me they are. And
right,
you know, so I have one who's like a bleeding heart. You know, he's just like blah. And then,
right,
you know, I have another one and she's pretty open about feelings too, but my oldest, like he's like my twin outwardly and inwardly. And
right,
he's very guarded and he's very like I'm fine even though he's like dying inside, you know. He'll like lash out in anger but like to show like real emotion he doesn't. So it's like it's crazy because I see me at a younger age like constantly, and I don't want him to go through life like that because I
sure,
did, you know. And I know how it feels. And so I've really been trying to incorporate what recovery has taught me into them. You know what I mean?
sure,
Like, because my addiction bled on them. So why not let my recovery? Like,
right,
all these
absolutely,
things that I learned at 20, I got sober when I was 27. You know, I'm 32 now. If I would have known this stuff back then, you know, um, I maybe wouldn't have been such a talk because I personally believe I wasn't like the most perfect person before addiction.
right,
Um,
right,
I was I may or may not have been a little toxic, you know?
right, right,
So,
absolutely. Not, I
um,
don't mean absolutely for you, but I'm right there with you.
no, I definitely was. Anybody that knew me then knows that. It's cool. Um, but like, you know, teaching them that like it's okay to talk about feelings because where I was raised, like, suck it up.
Hmm.
Um, don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about.
Yep.
You
Oh
know,
yeah,
I
heard that one
remember,
too.
yeah, when I was a kid, man, I would go missing and my mom's like freaking out trying to find me. And I would get up underneath my bed and I would cry under there and fall asleep because I didn't want anybody to see me cry. Um, and like glass coffee table too, even though they could see me, I couldn't see them. So like it was a thing.
Right.
And and I just, you know, looking back on stuff like that and seeing how like that carried on throughout my life, you
Sure.
know, just little things like that. Like I really want them to know that it's okay to show emotion and to talk about feelings and just be more open with talking to me about things in general. Because you're right. There, you know, this it's crazy out there. Like,
Yeah,
you know, it's way
absolutely.
more in your face today, you know, and I mean, I hope to God I was pretty open with them with what happened to their dads. And so I'm, you know, I have that hope that like they'd be like,
Right.
you know, but God forbid they don't. Like I
Sure.
never want them to feel like they can't come talk to me. And I definitely want them to know that there's not just me, but like this whole community out there for
Right,
them.
absolutely. And that's a key part of it, right? And that's why that's a whole nother element of keeping them involved with us, right? Is because they meet other individuals and see that, okay, well, they have kids too, you know what I mean? Like, so you're, like you said, if they don't feel comfortable maybe talking to you, that maybe they might say something to somebody else in your support group or whatever, you know, and just be and have that dialogue, right? Like, I want to put people in my life that I know I can put in their life as well, as a safety net, I guess you could call it, you know. But it's crazy because I used to do the same thing. I had a captain's bed. I don't know if you know what that is. That's like an old, I don't even know if they make them anymore. But it's, so the bed was like elevated and there was like steps, and it had, I think it maybe had 1 or 2 drawers, but there was this huge space underneath, and I could lift up my mattress and box spring and like just hide in there. Like it was like a fort, right? But that's where I would go. Like I would get disciplined or spanked or whatever. And there's no crying after the spanking, right? So I go in my room, that's right where I would go. You know what I mean? And just kind of have that release. So yeah, and that carried over into adulthood and everything else. You know what I mean? Like I had to hide my emotions. I couldn't allow, if something went wrong, like I had to just suck it up. You know what I mean? Like until I was alone, and then I could break down. But you know, I'm not like that now. I'm not an emotional wreck, but if I want to cry, I'm gonna cry. You know what I mean? I ain't scared of that now. Like
I say
call me
I
what
say
you
it all
want,
the time.
cry baby, whatever. I'll be that.
I'm like, getting sober made me soft because
Well,
I cry so easy now.
listen, I watched the wrong music video or YouTube video. I'm like, oh man, that got me right in the feels, you know. But don't test my gangster though, because I still have it. It just doesn't come out as often. But don't test it if you, because it can come out too.
The gangster is exhausting though, and then we have to
It
make
is. It is.
amends, and it's just not. It's not
we
even
were
worth it.
we were talking about that at work, right? Like today, as a matter of fact, like because my boss was like, because I'm always sarcastic. It's always been my nature, and sometimes it can be kind of mean spirited, but in a joking way. And he's like, man, you can kind of be a jerk sometimes. And I'm like, it's not intentional, right? I'm just kidding around. He's like, no, I know. I said, but you know what? This is like the one little space that I can have that sarcasm, right? Because everything else that I'm doing, I can have it a little bit, but like it's important that I don't have that, right? Because that's a side of me that I can't go back to. So when I'm doing my recovery stuff, like, you know, not to say that it's a totally different person, right? But I just carry myself differently because I want to be looked at as somebody that has standards, morals, values, you know what I mean? Integrity. And if I'm sitting there constantly making, you know, cracks or joke, you know, well, let's not say jokes because we all know about my jokes. Those are just dad jokes. But if I'm being sarcastic, and it can be taken the wrong way, you know, it can be misconstrued very quickly and very easily. So I only use that at work. That's all, just a little bit. But
I'm very careful, I think, today with how I don't know. I feel, you know, a lot of us, and so I've noticed, especially with women, right? We come into the one common thing we usually have is that we all hate women. And then, so with that, you know, comes just like there's the RBF, we usually have that going on, and like this hard exterior and intimidation, like if I don't let anybody in, they can't hurt me,
right?
Or, you know, and like it took me a long time to like change. I mean, I can't change this, but you know what I mean? Like try to remind myself to
you can, it just might be expensive.
Yeah. So I try to like remind myself to smile, or like if I'm in a meeting or something, like a mentor of mine was like, don't cross your arms because it makes you look closed off. And I'm like,
right.
Okay, so I try to remind myself of that, right? And just be more like welcoming to people. And you know, in early sobriety, I was pretty hot-headed still. I mean, I can be still, but like not as like I was then, you know.
Right.
So I try to be, you know, have that integrity, doing the right thing when nobody's watching, you know, and not say something in a meeting or on a group or wherever in the recovery community, and then go to Walmart and cuss some poor little old lady out because she's, you know, too close to me with a shopping cart or something. Like on the road, I haven't mastered it completely, I'm not gonna lie, but
I mean, that's understandable. You're in the confines of your own car, and there's a lot of stupid drivers out there.
Yeah. Chris
It's
Washington
crazy.
said, Phil, you wouldn't be you if you didn't do the jokes.
Yeah, it's a thing now. It's a thing. And like, man, I got some good ones. I got just jokes written everywhere. Like, I mean, I don't know. I am gonna have to find new material because the dad jokes are it's getting harder and harder to find them. So
And you're like, space them out. Space them
yeah,
out.
well, I don't know about that. I gotta do some every meeting. You know what I mean? Like it's a thing. I swear to you, it's a thing. Like I even have now people come on my meetings, and if they hear one that they'll tell me, right? So that's a pretty big deal. If they're coming bringing me jokes. So but
Yeah.
you know, you said something in there when you were talking about how women are like and being closed off and stuff. That was me too, right? Like I closed myself off when especially early in my actually, I mean, shoot, I did it for probably a year and a half. Like it hasn't, honestly, it's been the past 6 months, excuse me, maybe 7 or 8 months that I've really started to allow people into my life again, right? I have always been kind of a people person. You know, I could talk to anybody. That doesn't mean that I've always allowed people that close to me. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just my own thing. But you know, and even now, like I'm very picky about the people that I let in my circle, only because I have to be, right? Just to be careful of, you know, my own sobriety. Like I have to have that little bit of a bubble, so to say. And if if you're in the bubble, you're good. Other than that, it takes some work to get in the bubble, because you have to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to prove to me that you are about what you're about. You know, and some people are, some people aren't. Like I mean, you know how this thing goes. You know what I mean? Sometimes people's intentions are totally different than what's coming out of their mouth. You know, and we have to be guarded because of that. And it's a difficult thing to balance, right? Because if you've been guarded for a long time or if you've been hurt a lot in the past, right, to all of a sudden get into recovery and try to open up, right, you fall back into that pattern of like, no, like you're getting too close, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what you're doing over there, but you ain't doing it here type of thing. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
it's okay. And that's where, like we were talking about being selfish, right? Like you have to be selfish with that, like to make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people. So
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody about this today or yesterday, as far as like, if you are in my vicinity and you don't think I'm taking your inventory, I'm taking your inventory.
yeah,
Because I want to
absolutely.
know who I want around me and who I don't want around me. You know,
Right.
when I was younger, and me and this person talked about this too, you know, when I was younger, you knew when I came in the room, like I was loud, I had to be seen, I was, you know, and now that I'm older, I'm pretty quiet when you first meet me, you know what I mean? I'm like, I read the room, I listen to
Yeah.
what people say, and I see if their actions match what they say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't have time for drama today. I don't have the energy to be angry all the time. I just, you know, spend the majority of my life like that. And so and especially like I have 3 little ones, you know, like I need to know who I'm around. Not saying that I'm like stuck at, like, you know what I mean? I talk to
No, of course.
newcomers, I talk to people that I don't know, but I have boundaries today. Like
Sure.
that's huge for me, because I'm all or nothing. You're either way out there or you're way, you know, all the way in. And
Right.
and I had to figure out in recovery that that's not okay, because I get hurt a lot like that, or I get very
Right.
lonely.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And
yeah.
that's the flip side to it is either you're going to get hurt or that's how we like to think about it, right? I'm either going to be lonely, I'm going to be alone, or I'm going to get hurt, right? And that's
Mhm.
dangerous. That's a dangerous place to keep continuously put ourselves in, right? And finding that happy medium of, you know, I think I talked about it the other night in the meeting. Like I've got maybe 6 people, right, that I talk to on a regular basis. And other than that, like, because I'm still working on that, you know what I mean? I'm still working on letting new people into my life, right? Because for me, it wasn't so much about always about being hurt, but it was about me being the one hurting them or letting them down, right? So for me, it's kind of the opposite of the hurt. You know, I don't want to let anybody down, and I figure that the more people I have around, if something goes wrong, I don't want to be looked at like, oh, here goes Phil again. You know what I mean? Like that's that old Phil.
Mhm.
And I have to realize that now the people that I'm surrounding myself with they're really not gonna look at me like that. I'm gonna surround myself with people that if something does start to go bad, they're picking me right up and being like, don't worry about it, we got this, let's go. You know what I mean? That's who I'm gonna surround myself with.
Yeah,
So, and you know, and that's all, it can be a hard thing to find. It really can.
it
So,
can be. And I was just thinking too, as far as like when I said, a lot of us women don't like women in early recovery. When I had to actually do like work on that and take a look at like the cause and effects and stuff, um, I was really jealous of a lot of women, right? I thought they looked better than me. I thought they had more things than me. Some of them had their kids and I didn't. Um, I was always on guard, like they're going to steal my man, like, all this stuff that I had accumulated in my head from all these years of being around toxic people, you know what I mean? And that's what happens. Like when we surround ourselves with people that do those things and make us feel that way, that's what we get.
right.
Today I live in my entire like social network, for the majority of them, right, are all people in recovery working a program. And like those people lift me up. They don't put me down
Right.
to build themselves up. They don't need to because they're good people, And we take people that come in like I was, right? And we love them until they can love themselves. And then we allow them to love us too, and it's just this
Yeah,
huge thing.
absolutely.
And I would have never, ever back in the day said love that many times in one sentence. I just want to point that out.
But it's funny, Chris Washington has posted in the chat. He says he calls it that wall of defense.
Mhm.
And it's easy, when when I was in my addiction, it was easy for me to have that, right? Like, because again, like I said, I was always lying, manipulating, ever shifting, like just everything. I was hiding everything, right? So it was easy for me to be defensive and keep people away. Now my recovery, I still have to have a wall of defense, but I have to be able to be on top of that wall. You know what I mean? Like up there to
Mhm.
see who's coming, right? Like, because I have to be able to judge, who they are and what they're about. Like you were saying, it's I can't just constantly stay behind it now and not let anybody even come close to the wall. I've got to, every once in a while, I'm going to have to start opening that door and breaking down that wall a little bit and make it to where I can maybe see over the top of it and not have to get on top of it,
Yeah.
and and it's okay. That's okay to do. It's just and I've heard, it's funny because I've heard so many times, like because you were talking about women and women, right? And I've heard,
Mhm.
oh, just other women are always so catty, right? Men are too. Men are too. Like we are. There's some catty ass dudes out here. Like it works both ways, right? Like
Mhm.
and it's crazy. Like it's crazy. Because I don't know what it is, and I don't know if it's a when you get to a certain place in your recovery, right? When you really start to feel good about yourself and things are happening, you're working on your recovery capital, things are going on in your life, and people see that progress, right? And they want it too. And then once they, but they're not really doing the same work, right? Or maybe they're doing things a little differently and it's just not happening as quickly for them, right? And they're not being patient. They want it instantly. Well, he got it in 6 months. Why can't I get it in 6 months? Well, because we're two different people, right? But then they become catty, right? And they're, oh well,
Yeah.
he's a know-it-all, or you know what I mean? Like that's where that comes from. Like, and like I said, guys do it too. Because I hear it. I hear it. And I'm like, bro, like you gotta leave that alone. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
we worry about you, don't worry about anybody else. I just, and that's part of that toxic stuff too, like that drama. Like I try my best to not, because human nature is we're inquisitive people, right? So you want to know what's going on, but at the same time, you're like, no, I really don't want to know. Well, kind of, no, you're doing that teeter totter, like, and then you finally, and hopefully that good side kicks in. You're like, nope, don't want that in my life, right? Because it becomes toxic too, all by itself, and then you get and then you're in the middle of other people's crap. That's not a
Right.
good place to be.
No. And I used to do that a lot. I'm like run and jump in the middle. Like, dun,
Mhm.
dun, dun,
Here I come
you
with
know?
my cape and all.
Yes. Like I am gonna take a stand and this is my debate now.
Yeah, and
And
I might be able to save you both.
yeah, no,
No,
that's not
no,
how it works.
no, doesn't. It
No.
sounds good though, right? Because that's the other that happens too, because you get to a certain point in your recovery and you want to help people, right? And you don't want people, especially if they're in your support group or in your network of people, right? And you know that they're maybe at odds or whatever, and you're like, oh, nope, can't have this on my watch. I can save them,
Mhm.
because you don't want that strife, and you don't, but you can't do it, right? Like, because
Right.
then next thing you know, you're taking on both of their stuff, right?
Yeah.
Not just one of them. You're taking on both of their stuff and trying to be a ping pong ball,
Yeah.
and that's what your brain feels like. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh no, can't do it anymore. I'm not in
No.
high school. I ain't been there in a long time.
Yeah. I know. I used to go to my sponsor a lot about it. She's like, oh, you done got into something you ain't have no business getting into again, huh? How'd that
Mhm.
work out for
Yeah.
you? And I'm like, well, here I am. So that should tell you everything you need to know.
I'm back talking to you again, so
Yeah.
I guess it's not so good.
Mm-mm.
Chris said too. He said now he screens people that comes into his life to make sure that they have good intentions for my life and my recovery. And yeah, I mean that's right on. It, and it's difficult, man, because you know it and I know it. Man, there's some shady ass folks out there, right? And it doesn't matter if they're in recovery or not in recovery. Like there's people with bad intentions out there for whatever reason, and they're just not good people. And what they call it, snakes in the grass. You know what I mean? Like, well, I got an answer for that. I got a really good lawnmower for snakes in the grass. Like I'm chopping right off at the head. Like, nope, not today.
Yeah. I say I should get the tattoo. Someone's like, people just don't do right. Like they
Yeah,
really, people just don't. I didn't used to do right either. I don't always do right
exactly.
now, but I strive to do better, right? That's the goal.
That's
Um,
and you know what, and I think I know I can see that in people. You know what I mean? Like if I see people that are putting forth the effort, you know what I mean? Like just because maybe I don't even know, maybe they cuss a lot, right? Which I do too, but I'm just using that as like if that's the thing, right? And you're like, oh well, you could do better, and as long as you're putting forth the effort and trying to not be that whatever it is that you're working on, that's what it's all about. It's when you just sit idle and do nothing and then complain about it. I ain't got time for that. I don't want to hear all that nonsense. Like get off your butt and put in some work. You know what I mean? Like you got to put in a little bit of work to get some results.
right.
So, we got a question. Who was the most positive influence in your recovery? Hmm. Hmm.
A heavy one.
That is a heavy one.
There's so many.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. Every time I tried recovery before, nobody, because I never opened up. I never even, I even had a sponsor once, right? And, but I never really talked to him. You know what I mean? Like I saw him in meetings and would say something, but you know what I mean? Like I never even gave him the chance to be my sponsor. Um, and I, even when I asked him, I did it because Expansion Drug Court told me I needed to have a sponsor. So that's the only reason he was even my sponsor. If it wouldn't have been for that, I would have never even asked anybody. But this time, man, there's a lot of people. And it started with Rob, because my second meeting, on 0 hour it was just me and Rob on a group, right? And just the connection that we had, with just me and him talked for a whole hour. And I was like, man, I like that dude. I didn't know what it was. And later on, I just realized that, we had a lot of things in common, and we thought the same way about a lot of things. And I just saw how he maneuvered, how he navigated in his recovery and the things that he's doing right with 0 hour. And I was like, okay, that's somebody I can definitely look up to now. So that was, Rob started it all, but then it became more of, there's just a lot of the peers, right? And seeing the growth in people and seeing people's lives changing. And it might sound a little cliche or tacky, right? But I mean, that's just how it is for me, right? Seeing people's growth has been humbling. And even some of the ones that maybe have fallen off a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, it's a reminder, and it sucks. But it's a big part of what keeps me going every day, right? And I appreciate for the good and bad. Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at now. Now, like I said, there's a lot, just anybody that's doing the right thing, I look up to.
Yeah. Mine would definitely be my second sponsor. We didn't always see eye to eye. We're both equally crazy. But you know what? Like, she really would tell me, like, in the most loving way, about myself.
Mm.
And like I said, I was real crazy in the beginning. Like, she is actually who broke me of like my Facebook ranting. And anybody who knows me prior to, right, knows how bad that used to be. And she would call me and she would be like, listen, like, you should probably take that post down like now, because I'm pretty sure, number one, you can catch a charge for it, and for two, and I'd be like, hesitant. And so I'd take my time because I'm not going to listen to her. And then I would take it down. And
Me.
yeah. And so, like, she would do that so much that finally, like, I would put a post up, wait a few seconds, and be like, she's gonna call me. So I would take it down. Then I got to where I would just like type the post out, and I'm like, I'm not even gonna bother, and I would erase it, right? And now I just pick up the phone and call her and say it all to her, and let her filter it through. But let me tell you something. Like, that lady right there, every single one of my like life changing experiences and sobriety, she has shown up for, no matter what. And I'm talking like both times, two dads passed away. Or before that, my dad passed away. Where you at? 5 minutes, she's there. The kid's dad's passed away. 5 minutes, she's there. I'm at a meeting losing my ever loving mind because I want to strangle somebody. 5 minutes, she's there. Like, she has just like clockwork shown up for me and shown me how to be that woman for other women, because
Right.
I hated women when I got here. And she's really one of the, the OGs. Like, she showed me that it's okay to have love for another woman and like to respect each other and build each other up. And she still does to this day. Like, when I'm down and out, she's that one I call, and she reminds me of everything I've been through thus far and reminds me that I can make it through whatever's coming next.
Yeah.
She's just amazing.
That's super important, and see, that's why, like, for me, like I said, my big six is what I call them, right? My big six, I know that I can text or call and they're going to pick up the phone. If they don't pick up the phone, they're going to be calling me right back. And I can pretty much tell anything too. And that's something that I haven't had in my life, like, ever. I've had plenty of friends, right? Tons of friends, but no real relationship. So that's kind of where I'm at. And you'd think at 45, and I've been married twice, right? But even, and no disrespect to them if they might be watching this, but I wasn't genuine in those relationships, right? It's really nothing on them. I wasn't genuine. I didn't know how to be a husband. I didn't know how to be, you know what I mean? Like, that was because I just had so much internal stuff that I was dealing with. So for me now, at my age, to finally be making connections with people in a genuine way is super important to me. And I value those bonds and relationships unlike anything. I mean, like my own children, right? You know what I mean? Like I'm going to war for any of them, you know, and you're part of my big six, just so you know. But I'm going to war for anybody that's in that group, like no matter what, just like I would for my family and my kids. Like that's my second family. You know, give the shirt off my back, maybe not the hat because I got hat hair, but if you needed it, you could have it. But that's just how I am, you know, and I never, and that's pretty, it's to think about now, just saying it out loud just kind of made me think back, like how unfair that was to other relationships that I was in, right? And I've made amends in my ways to those, like especially my two exes, right? My two ex-wives, right? Like of how unprepared and uninvested I was in truly in those relationships. I was so selfish and self-centered and self-serving that they never had a chance to work, you know. And my second one, and we were together almost 10 years, you know what I mean? But the stuff that I did in that relationship was just, I don't know why she stayed with me that long, to be honest with you. I mean, that's just the truth. You know what I mean? You know, I wouldn't have put up me now. Nah, head, nope, kick rocks. Yeah, I mean, and hopefully she'll be like that too. You know what I mean? Like, cause she had to deal with me for so long. But it's just an amazing thing, you know, to be able to build a relationship now with a person and appreciate it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little sappy. Get a little emotional.
It's necessary sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Jeff had a question.
Okay.
As new recovery coaches, how do you separate your working with others that are not doing the right thing in your own recovery without personalizing it? Whew.
Y'all are asking some loaded questions tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you answer that one first though, because that's a tough question. Like, because all right, so I'll go ahead. I'm just gonna talk about it, right?
Okay.
That is such a difficult thing. I don't even think so let's take recovery coaching out of the question, right? Out of the equation, right? As a human being, it's difficult sometimes to personalize and not bring your own stuff into it, right? Because we become invested in however that relationship is, you're invested, right? And then so it's so easy to start projecting your stuff onto that stuff, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, at least for me, that's a hard thing to do. But I think as you get further in knowing who you are as a person, it definitely becomes easier, because for me, I have to be able to sit back and not put my way of thinking on somebody else's situation, right? Because they have a totally different things they got other stuff going on in their life that I don't have, right? So I have to be a really good listener to keep it from me personalizing it to me, right? Like, I have to be a really good listener. And I think I can't. I like to talk too, but I mean, I'm like you said, you know, I listen to a lot of things and a lot of comments, and I pick up on things. And that's how I try to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always easy at all, you know. But I try really hard to remember where I came from. Right. Because you weren't talking to me about recovery when I first got here. Like, I didn't want to hear it. You could talk all you wanted to, but you're falling on deaf ears, right? Or so I thought. The seed got planted and unbeknownst to me. But you know, all I can do is continue to do what I do. Right. I can make sure that my face is still to be seen in the recovery community when and if they make it back. And I can pray for them that they do make it back, because these days that's probably less likely than the other, you know. But I just do the best I can. And it really too, like I'm gonna be honest, it depends on how spiritually fit I am. Because if I'm
Yeah,
spiritually fit I can think of it like that. But if I got a bunch of chaos going on, which happens sometimes, right?
sure.
I can very easily think it's my fault, think that I'm not doing enough, think that I could be doing more, think that, well, maybe I just don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not that important, I think is the first and foremost thing to realize here, because like I work a program of recovery, right? So I have this higher power and like he's utilizing me as this, I'm just a vessel. I'm his vessel.
Right.
And I do what he wants me to do for who he wants me to do it for, right? So
Right.
if something doesn't work out, and this was taught to me in early sobriety because Jeff, I struggled with it too, like bad, and when I was early on, right? And if somebody doesn't get it right away, am I questioning my higher power and what his plan for that person is? Because I'm not that important. He's using me for whatever he needs to use me for. And sometimes it's just simply to plant the seed.
Yeah. That's good. That was a good answer. I like it. I like that. You said a lot of good stuff because
It helped me.
yeah, I mean, like I was just listening to you talk and I'm just like, damn, like, yeah, and it sucks too, because as human beings, right, we want to help, right? We want to, but man, you can only help so much, right? You can't make anybody do anything if they don't want to. And a lot of times, sometimes people, just like you said earlier, you know how many times I've tried to be in recovery and I didn't want to hear nothing anyone had to say, right? Nothing. Don't even look at me, please. Like, oh, you want me to share? I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I was there. I was that guy. So, man, the way that now, the way that my higher power works, and it's kind. I don't want to say it mirrors the way what you were just saying, but it's the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, I cross paths with people and I talk to people, and if it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, I'm not. There's nothing I can't make it stick. I can't make somebody get it. I can't make somebody listen to me. I just can't do any of it,
No.
and it's not my place to, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it just isn't. It's I
You
can
know,
do my part, right? But I cannot jeopardize myself, my moral standards, integrity, my recovery, my family on trying to make you get it. Like,
no. And I did, like I said, I did that in early sobriety. I'm like, let me save you, and like I was that powerful, barely saved myself. But I can honestly tell you that now that I've been around for a while, I've had numerous people come back and be like, oh my God, you're still here. I remember you. And I remember when we talked about blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God, I remember you too. And thank God you made it back. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Glad to see you. Welcome home.
Yeah.
Hugs and love and all that good stuff, So, not everybody gets it, but man, when the ones that do really do, like, it's magical.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris
And to
said
know you
something,
just had this teeny tiny little part in it, like
just that little part. And
just
that's,
that little part.
I've said that a lot, right? That, like, the whole reason why that I do the things that I do, right? It's for me and my recovery, right? But if somewhere along the way, something I say or do helps just one person, just one, is I'm doing it all for the right reasons. Then, you know what I mean? Like, everything that all the effort and work that I put into my recovery, if one person gets something out of it, man, that's all I can hope for. I mean, I like for a lot more, absolutely, but it's not for me to decide. But Chris says something here. He said, the people that I've met since I've been in recovery and seeing growth and the honesty they put out, people that have given me good advice and will be willing to listen to me when I need a good set of ears. Because if it wasn't for meeting these people, my recovery would be that much harder. And for that, they are my most inspirational people even over his kids. And that, I mean, that's
Other than his kids.
other than his kids. Yeah. Yeah, my bad, Chris. Sorry. Not that your kids aren't important. But I mean, and that's like what I was saying about, peers and seeing that growth, and it's the good and the bad, seeing the ones that don't succeed too. Unfortunately, it helps me too, in a different way. Is it? I don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? Is it that? A little bit. Doesn't mean I don't have empathy and hope that, like you were saying, hope they come back, and I hope that everything works out. But it's just, I can't put myself in that situation to go down with that ship. Can't do it. But
Tell people all the time, whatever you put in, I'll match it.
I'll match it. Yep. Yeah.
Match
As long
it.
as you're willing to put in that effort, I will match. Yeah, absolutely. I'll put in that same amount of effort, but if it's me giving 80 and you're only giving 10,
You got a problem.
got a problem, because we don't even equal 100. So, you know what I mean? Like, it should be 100 and 100, and we can't even we're barely at 90. So
Yeah.
that it just ain't gonna work. It's not
Mhm.
gonna work. See, Jeff said, I guess I'm focused so much on the person I'm trying to help, I don't notice the people I am helping. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you get blinded, right? Because like, I know we've been joking about, the dun 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 dun, where's my cape, right? But I mean, but it's a real thing, right? Because we don't want people to fail. Like, we don't want people that in recovery. We want everybody to be able to get it. Like, I don't want to say like we've gotten it, but but we want people to be on the same level that we're on at that very moment, right? And hopefully be successful. It just two different individuals aren't always going to be able to have the same results, and my results will not work for the person to my left that I'm trying to help. You know what I mean? Like, I can talk to you and tell you everything I did from day one to now. It does not mean it's going to equate into your life the way that it did in mine.
And two, like, for one, it takes what it takes for each person, right? It
Yeah.
took what it took for me. And also, like, not everyone is meant for everyone. So, like, there's certain people that, like, I'm probably not going to be able to help because
Right.
they're not my person. Like, there's certain people that would speak, and still even now, right? They just, I cling on to everything they say. And then there's some people I don't relate to or identify with, and I shut them out. And that's going to be what you come across when you're trying to help others is, you might not, you might not be that person. And our ego, I think, takes a hit with that. Our pride and ego, like, don't you know how much I can help you? And that's when we're getting blocked. You know what I mean? Like, that's when we're blocking. And I've done it. I've been totally guilty of doing that. And it really puts me in a funky place. So I try really hard today to not let that happen. Let Big G do his thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, like you said, that is super hard, right? Because none of us want to see anybody else fail, right? Like, I don't care. I mean, well, don't get me wrong. Like, there might be somebody in my past that I'm like, you know what? If karma hit them, like, I'm okay with it. But it's not something that I'm wishing. I don't wish anybody ill will, or I don't wish anybody to fail, but I can't give you all the answers to your test. My test was totally different than yours. Like it's two totally different. Like, there's nothing that I can do to change you, like, as much as I want to, right? And if I give you all these answers and it still doesn't work, well, then I'm going to be looking at myself like, well, what did I do wrong, or what am I doing wrong? Like, and that's just not how it is. Like, everything, all my answers might have been right, but they were right for me, not for you.
Yeah, it literally is like the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Make him drink.
And in early sobriety, I was like, yeah, but I can run him till he's thirsty.
Yeah.
Only one that got thirsty in the whole situation was me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Man.
So,
Well, listen, man, we're about 9:20. We went over.
yeah.
But I just wanted to thank you for coming on here. I know Rob was driving home, so he dropped off. But I just really appreciate you, and I'm so glad you're in my life, and can't wait to hang out with you tomorrow and watch some cars.
Absolutely.
And yeah, just thank you for being on here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you did good. You did good, girl.
Thank you.
Was this your first Facebook Live?
I'm pretty sure.
Nice, nice. Now you're shoot. It's downhill after this. Now we can just start doing. We can start fired up for recovery on Monday. On
Okay. Slow down.
right after alumni, we can just go Facebook Live. You know what I mean? Like, just get it in all week long on Facebook. But yeah, I guess that maybe is all for all the questions, man. I hope everybody that joined us tonight, I hope they like what we had to say and took something away from it. Thank you guys so much. Chris said he enjoyed the meeting.
Yay.
That's one person. As long as one enjoyed it, that's all that matters. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we were just talking about that. As long as one person got something out of it. But
Wait, at the end of the day, we stayed sober.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, girl, again, thank you so much. And oh, I'm like reading the comment. Mary said, okay, say good night, and I will click end. But again, thank you for being on here. Thank everybody for coming on and joining us tonight. And hopefully we'll see y'all out of the car wash tomorrow. Come support us, please. Or help, either one. Support or help is both desperately needed. So, all right, guys, good night.
Good night.